Hello guys, my name is Subhajit. Welcome back to another Android app development tutorial. In our previous video, we have gone through all the basics of JSON, where we learned what JSON is, what are the types of JSON we have, and how to create a JSON as well. So if you haven't watched that video yet, or if you have any doubt regarding the concept of JSON, then you should watch that video first. You can find the link in this video description or at the right top corner of this video. Now in this particular video, we are gonna learn to make use of the JSON. In other words, we are gonna retrieve the data from a JSON file. Although most of the time you may have to fetch JSON data from APIs or web servers. However, this topic will be explained in a separate video. Anyway, without any further ado, let's jump into the Android Studio. Alright, as you can see, I have already created a project and these two files were generated by Android Studio. Anyway, first and foremost, I'm going to create a JSON file, but before that, we need to create a resource directory called raw. So right click on res, new Android resource directory. Then select the resource type, raw, then OK. Now inside this folder, we have to place our JSON file. So I'm going to create a new JSON file. Right click, new file. Let's name it student.json. Also remember the file name should be in small letters. Now we'll add some properties like student name, age and the rest. Actually, I'm going to copy an example that we have discussed in the last video. Okay, these are the data we need to cache or store in an object. In case if you don't know anything about JSON, let me explain to you briefly. In JSON, objects are written inside curly braces, and arrays are written inside square brackets. Also, JSON stores data in key value pairs, although we have discussed in details in our previous video. So now I'm going to create a class which will hold all these attributes. Basically, I'm going to create a model class, which is more appropriate to say. Anyway, right click on the root package, new Java class. Let's name it student. Let me show this tab as well, student.json. Okay, now I will declare a string type variable because our first attribute is name, which is string type. Anyway, private string name. Also remember that the variable name and the key must be the same along with their data type. Anyway, next one is age, which is int type, private int age. Next is height. It could be a float or double. So I'd like to go with double. Height. Then we have a boolean, private boolean is present. Now we have a set of objects. So we have to create another class with this name, address, which will store all these attributes and values. So right click on the root package, new Java class. Let's name it address. Now here private string street, then we have city, private string, city, then state postal code. Now create an empty constructor. Select none. Now I will create setter and getter for all of these variables. So let's create some room. Press Alt Insert. A little window will pop up on the screen. Now click on getter and setter. Then select all these attributes. Then OK. You can see all the get and set methods are being created. Anyway, now I will create a variable of this class in our student class. Private address. Finally, we have an array which contains a list of string type data. So we can use list or array list for this. Private, I'm going to use list. Then inside angle brackets, I'll type string. Then favouriteBooks. Okay, so far we have declared all the required variables. Now again I will create an empty constructor for this class also. Press Alt Insert. Select none. Also we need getter and setter. Alt Insert, getter and setter. Select all these attributes. Okay. So we have prepared our model classes. Now all we need to do is to store this data in our models. First I will create a separate class. Let's call it JSON Reader. Now in this class I will create a static method. Public static, and it will return the student object. Now let's call it ConvertJSON to object. Now we'll take context as an input parameter of this method. Now here first I will create an input stream variable. Input stream equal to, now context from here dot get resources dot open raw resource, then r dot raw dot student, which is our JSON file, right? Now I will create a byte of array. Let's call it data equal to new byte. Then pass input stream dot available. Now we need to surround this line by try catch, because input stream dot available is throwing the IO exception. So just click on this red bulb, or you can press Alt Enter, then surround with try catch. Now we can call input stream dot read and pass the data variable. Once this is done, we can close it. Input stream dot close. After all, we can convert our data, which is the byte of array, into a string like this. String JSON string equal to new string. Now pass the data variable, then comma, double quotes, UTF-8. So UTF-8 is basically used for encoding characters. We could use UTF-16, but UTF-8 is the universal character encoding format, which supports all the characters used in JSON. Anyway, now we just need to convert this JSON string into an object, and for this we are going to use a library called JSON. So with the help of this library, we can easily convert a JSON string to an equivalent object. Or even we can use this library to convert objects to a JSON string. So now I'm going to copy this dependency. Now jump into the Android Studio again. Then open build.gradle of module. Now in this dependencies block, paste the dependency that you have copied. Then sync the project. Okay, now at the end of this method, we can call return new JSON dot from then pass this JSON string. So this variable should be declared outside of try catch block, just like this. Now we can pass JSON string, then comma, new type token, angle bracket, type the root model class's name. In this case, it is a student. Then opening and closing parentheses, then opening and closing curly braces, then dot get type, and that's it. So basically this function will convert our JSON file into a JSON string, and then that JSON string will be converted to the equivalent objects with the help of JSON library. Simple. Now the final step is we need to call this function on a separate thread. And for this, we'll be using ExecutorService. So inside onCreate, let's create an instance of ExecutorService class. ExecutorService, let's name it executor equal to executors dot new single thread executor. Then simply call executor dot execute. Then new runnable, hit tab, perfect. Now in this run method, I will call JSON reader dot convert JSON to object, then pass main activity dot this as a context. And just because this method returns an object of a student class, I'm going to store that in a variable student equal to then JSON reader dot convert JSON to object. Now to update our UI, just call run on UI thread, then new runnable, hit tab. So in this run method, we will update our UI. But before that, let me run the app through debugging process. So I'll add a pointer here just after this line. Therefore, after execution of this line, whatever the running process is will be paused at this line. Well, let me show you quickly what do I mean. So I'm going to run this app on my emulator. As you can see, app is running on my emulator. Now just attach the debugger with the app's process like this. Now I will press the back button and close the app. Let's open again. And now you can see the app's process is paused at this line. Anyway, click on debugger. And here is the student object. Let me expand this. See, all the data has been synced or cached in their corresponding variables such as addresses data, age, height, and so on. Now we can use this data to update the UI. So for now, I'm going to add a text view in which we'll be set the student name just to show you how we should update the UI. Anyway, as you can see, in this activity main.xml, we already have a text view that shows hello world, and it actually has no ID. So let's assign the ID first. Txt student name. Now inside main activity, I'll initialize it. Text view, let's say txt name equal to find view by id r.id.txt student name. Now here in run on UI thread, I'll set the student name txt name dot set text, then student dot get name. Now let's test our application. See, the student name is showing, and this is how we should update the UI. Now it's your turn to show the rest of the elements on the UI. Actually, by following this tutorial, you can create any kind of offline apps on any topic. Thank you so much for watching and spending some time with me here on the Daily Coding Tutorial channel. If you have any questions or suggestions, drop your message in the comment box, or you can join the Telegram group. Also, if you feel you have learned something new today, hit the like button, share with your friends, and subscribe for more content. Thanks again for watching, guys. See you soon in the next one.